All right, I am here doing a solo pod. As you can see, Adam Weinrib is not here, so you guys are stuck with me today. So I'm very anxious to dive into what's going on around the league. We had a signing yesterday, a surprising move for the Houston Astros. Other stuff kind of sort of percolating around the league, so we'll see exactly what gets done here in the coming days and the coming weeks. But I am very anxious to dive into that to do much more as well. So it is good to be here. I was about to ask Adam how he's doing, but yeah, again, he's not here. So it is a solo pod. So what do you guys say? Should we hop into this pod and do some things real quick? So let's get into it here with Imai going to the Houston Astros. Honestly, I can say I did not see that one coming. So I'll give you guys a look into my process here. Is It was obvious like a signing was coming, but every team that I checked on and checked around, it seemed like they were unlikely. The Phillies were unlikely. The Mets were unlikely. I heard like in the days coming in that the Cubs were unlikely as well. The White Sox, who were reported to be like a serious contender from some international outlets, I was told they were unlikely. So I didn't know exactly where he was going, and then all of a sudden, John Heyman drops it. Of course, while I'm at the gym, that he's going to the Houston Astros, and to me, this was a really good signing for Houston. They had been looking for starting pitching. They've obviously added Mike Burrows to the rotation, but even after that, there was still like an urgency or a feeling of a need that the Houston Astros needed to go out and get a starting pitcher. And they did so here getting Imai. I really like the move. 3 years with opt outs after each season. And the structure of it, I mean, obviously they gave him a lot per season, but there's virtually no risk here. And there's a couple things that I think right away. Um, the Astros, they had Kikuchi for a good stretch there a couple of years ago. And I think his success there and what he ended up doing in Houston played a role in this and getting Imai going to Houston. And I know Chandler Rome was on that part as well, so I want to give Chandler his credit there. But also, like, what is necessarily next year for the Astros? Because I mean, Chandler wrote about this today, so this is I'm giving shout out to Chandler here. But there is like, how do I want to phrase this? The Astros were specifically Jim Crane. They were a little bit worried about getting over the luxury tax this season, and I wonder if they can end up maybe shedding some more payroll, which is something that they've done before. So I wouldn't rule out another move to maybe shed some payroll. Perhaps could be in the infield, but they got better with this move, and I want to give that front office credit there because I don't think anybody necessarily really expected this to come here for the Houston Astros and Imai. So now everyone is watching Okamoto. And what exactly does his market look like? I know people were begging for it in the last show, and based on the comments here, they're begging for it again. I can honestly say this one feels a lot like Imai, where I wouldn't be surprised if he ends up going to a team where it surprises a bunch of different people. Because I don't like John Heyman reported that the Angels probably were not going to be aggressive in the bidding. I know the Pirates have been connected to him, but I can see a scenario where they try to spend their remaining money on different positions on the roster, whether it's another bat, a bullpen piece, and a starting pitcher. So they could be creative there, but I don't think the Pirates are the most likely landing spot for Okamoto as of this point. So if it's not those teams, could it be a team like the San Diego Padres where AJ Preller is always aggressive on the market and he likes to go into the international waters to try to sign some free agents. So to me, I think that could be an option there. But I wouldn't be surprised if there's a team that just we don't see connected to Okamoto who ultimately ends up getting him. His posting date, I believe, or like he has to sign by, I believe, Sunday. So you would think that it would end up being a case where he agrees to a deal today or maybe tomorrow because the physical, like he's got to take a physical before this deal can become official. So obviously the timeline here is rushed on Okamoto. So we'll see with that. But yeah, I think he's going to be the next domino to fall. And then after that, we have, I mean, all these big free agents who are still out there. And the first one I'll start with here is Cody Bellinger. He is a player that I love. Scott Boras called him like the only 5-2 outfielder on this free agent market. And to me, like, I still wonder if he ended up forgetting about Kyle Tucker because Kyle Tucker exists. He's very good. And I don't think we should be slighting Tucker at all just to praise Bellinger, but I guess he is his agent. So, I mean, I guess that would behoove him to do so. But Bellinger, I've made it pretty clear. I think the Yankees are the most likely option. And John Heyman reported yesterday that the Yankees have made a new offer to Bellinger. I don't know necessarily what that was, but you have to imagine there's going to be other teams involved in this thing as well. And the Mets, to me, stand out as a team that makes sense for Bellinger. I'll get into the Mets later on. I have plenty of thoughts there because I see plenty of people reacting and a lot of people overreacting to their lack of movement this offseason, but they make sense. I still think this is total speculation on my end, but I think the Giants make sense. You have a team that needs another bat. You have a team that obviously went out and spent on Rafael Devers and got him last season. They've obviously added to the rotation, but if you go out and get Devers, why not continue to spend big dollars if you're that franchise and that ownership group, especially now that you have Buster Posey in San Francisco running the show there? I'm skeptical that they would do it. And Bellinger's made it very clear that he wants to go to a winner. And I mean, I think the Giants, if they get Bellinger, would be in a really strong position to go out and actually compete in that division, or just compete in the National League West, or compete in the National League as a whole. So we'll see there, but I still think the Yankees are the most likely outcome. I don't get the impression that anything is close here with Bellinger. But obviously that can always change in one phone call. That's obviously something I love to say, and trust me, I'll take you guys like behind the scenes here for what ended up happening here at the winter meetings. Is I checked in on a free agent, and I was told that nothing was close and that it was probably going to be a later in the offseason kind of thing. 6 hours later, that contract got done. Legitimately, it changed with one phone call. Can't say the player. But it was a case where legit it went from being nothing going to that player agreeing to a deal very quickly. So when I say it can change with one phone call, I absolutely mean it. Now let's go over to Bo Bichette, because there has been plenty of new reporting here from John Heyman as well, where he listed the New York Mets, or the New York Yankees, the Los Angeles Dodgers, and there was another team that he ended up mentioning there for Bichette, saying that they checked in. And the Dodgers stuff, I've heard that prior to his reporting, like the Dodgers, I think they've checked in, and it doesn't necessarily like hurt to check in to see exactly what they're going to go out and, or what a player might go out and get, because maybe you can end up getting a value there. But I know Bichette is drawing plenty of interest this offseason, and I know there's been people who are thinking about him at different positions. I've seen reporting about different positions for Bichette. I still think he's absolutely a shortstop, that we should not be thinking about him being off a shortstop. Like, yeah, I get he's not one of the top defensive shortstops by any means, but that being said, he's still like can get it done in that position. And every team that I've talked to this offseason has said that he can play shortstop. So, yeah, that's something that I think we should be more conscious of. Another team that I do think makes sense for Bichette is the Boston Red Sox. That being said, I believe that like the Jays make the most sense for Bichette among those teams in the American League East, who I've just talked about here. The Jays know exactly what Bichette is. They watch him come up throughout that entire organization. He's 28 years old. Is he a perfect player? No, like he's not. But that being said, he is a very good player who helps them tremendously in getting to the World Series. And obviously he hit that critical home run in Game 7, where if they ended up winning, you can make a very strong argument that he could have been the World Series MVP. So I don't know. I still think the best fit for the Jays is Bo Bichette. I still think the best fit for the Red Sox is Alex Bregman. And yeah, that was not something that was on the rundown talking about Alex Bregman, but I'm going to get into that here with the Buster Olney report today. Like the Red Sox make the most sense here for Bregman. They watch what he did last season. He had an awesome year in Boston, offensively, defensively. And we've talked about it a ton on this show, but I've continued to hear from people around the league that the leadership that he provided in that clubhouse was super important for them. And if you can add him to the mix here and you can have him around Roman Anthony, around some of these other young guys as well, that to me is a no-brainer move for them. They need to be aggressive in the bidding, and I can't confirm, I don't have it confirmed that they've made an aggressive offer. That's not me debunking Buster's reporting by any means, but they need to be aggressive here and keep him, or just be aggressive and sign a big name, because that to me is something that's vital for them. And they traded Rafael Devers and shedded that entire contract of his mid-season. And if you don't go out and spend, I mean, shoot, they've added Wilson Contreras and Sonny Gray. Like they've absolutely spent for sure, but they still have room to do more after shedding that contract. And to me, like, whether it's a Bregman, who I think makes the most sense, or a Bichette type, they have to do something. And I expect them to. Is dangerous because the Red Sox and that ownership group is always kind of, you never really know how much they're going to end up being willing to spend. But I expect them to be in those markets there for sure. All right, now here's a fun one. Why I am still confident in the New York Mets. Okay, David Stearns. I was around Stearns for years in Milwaukee. He is as smart and as brilliant of an executive as I've ever been around. He thinks about things. He's got plans. He's got plan A, B, C, D, like you name it. Like, he's got backup options. He always thinks things through. And when you move on from Pete Alonso, when you move on from all these guys that they have this offseason, it's going to invite scrutiny. And he grew up a Mets fan. He is very aware of the territory and exactly how Mets fans feel. This is not coming as a surprise for him. There's clearly a plan. And if you look at like the remaining free agents on the market, you have Bichette, you have Tucker, you have Bellinger, you have all sorts of these different guys. The offseason, yeah, we may be in January, but it's still young. There's still plenty of players, impact players, that are remaining on the market. Do I expect Stearns to do something? Yes, I do. This is not his first rodeo. He's waiting out the market. I know it's frustrating for a lot of people, but after last season, he thought it was pretty clear that significant changes were needed. He did so. He's putting his stamp on the team. There is a plan. Will it work? Like, it remains to be seen. But watching what he did in Milwaukee, and maximizing that roster, like, he's done it before. He's brilliant. He's got a bigger payroll now and an owner who's got way bigger pocketbooks. So I think it'll work out. It's just taken longer for people than they would have hoped. But please, like, be patient for sure. So, I mean, hey, I see your comment, RTM, about Bichette. I mean, he, like, defensively, as I said, he's not one of the top defensive shortstops. He does not grade out well at the position, but I can tell you how I've talked to teams around the league. They still think he can play shortstop. Like, does he end up playing a different position? You can never rule anything out, but people around the league still view him as a shortstop. I'm going to double down on that. Obviously, a burner with the Brewers trade Yelich. No, they're not going to trade Christian Yelich. The Mets are a very incomplete team. Marte, you are indeed correct. But again, to reiterate what I was just saying, they're not done. They're going to do something. And I believe in David Stearns. So a couple more here, and then we can dive into some of your questions. The Phillies and J.T. Realmuto. What exactly is going on here? I'm like many of you. I thought as soon as the Phillies ended up signing Kyle Schwarber, they would get J.T. Realmuto done, like, pretty quickly. And yet there's still no sign of a deal being close, and there's no deal done. So I'm wondering, like, it makes you wonder what exactly is going on here with Realmuto. He's still absolutely in play with Philadelphia. I can say that with a lot of confidence, and I still absolutely expect him to return to Philly. It's just taking longer than both sides would really prefer here. But you would have to worry at this point of another team coming in at the last second and swooping in and trying to steal him away from Philadelphia, because there is outside interest. There's other teams in the market for Realmuto besides the Phillies. So again, I expect him to return to Philly, but there are other teams absolutely in play here. And then lastly, when will the free agent market heat up? That is a question that I have asked so many people around the league. And I asked people before the show today, I'm like, when do you expect this to heat up? Is it starting to heat up now? No. And that's me being the total like real. That's me being totally real. That the Philly or not the Phillies. I see the Chad Kendrick comment there, or not the boy, we got a moderate comment there. Okay. But free agency, the next player to go is very likely going to be Okamoto, and then you have Bregman, you have Bellinger, you have Kyle Tucker, you have, I mean, the starting pitchers that are still out there. I don't get the impression that any of them are close at this point, and until those guys go, then I mean, it could end up being a little bit of a wait here for free agency. So I'm still expecting it to be relatively quiet. I'm not like sitting on my phone nonstop waiting for the go text on different things. Or as of this point, besides Okamoto, I don't know of anything that's going to be happening here in the coming days or whatever. So it's a very boring offseason. I know there's some people who would absolutely like a free agency deadline, but I mean, as of this point, I don't think. Yeah, it's just a very slow market as of this point. So not very good, but we still have plenty to talk about with all of these guys here remaining on the market. Okay, now let's dive into all these questions here. The latest on Brendan Donovan. Good question here to start it off. Hello, Canyon. So John, that is something that I've checked on, and I can confidently say that the Cardinals' stance is this. They are fielding calls on Brendan Donovan. They are putting a very high asking price on him, but as of this point, nobody's come close to doing so. And they don't have to move him. That's something that they've made it pretty clear internally, is that they are placing that high asking price, and if nobody meets it, they're very comfortable holding on to him. And maybe that means trading him at the trade deadline, or maybe even means moving him at next offseason. They can be very picky here. And I think Chaim Bloom has done a really nice job in St. Louis so far in getting the most out of these deals. I know there's people around the league who have really praised him for the work that he's done. Do I expect Donovan to be moved? It's still up in the air as of this point, but unless some team ends up going out and blowing him away with an offer, then they will keep him in St. Louis, and he'll report to spring training for them next month. Which, how crazy is it that spring training is next month already? It feels like the offseason kind of just began, but alas, here we are. Donovan or Marte more likely to be traded? Honestly, I'm going to say neither. Donovan, I just got into Donovan, so I'll go with Marte here. There are still teams who are trying on Marte. Like, it's not a case where like he's going to stay like for sure. But the Diamondbacks would absolutely love clarity on this sooner rather than later. And do I expect him to stay? Yes, I do. I don't believe he's going to be traded, but there are still teams who are trying to get him away from Arizona. So I can't say with 100% confidence that he will stay in Arizona. But it's trending toward him being unlikely to be moved and staying in Arizona for the coming season there. Is Harrison Bader seeking a multi-year deal? I don't know what he's seeking, but that being said, I can confidently say he is drawing a good amount of interest. Defensively, it goes without being said, goes without saying, like, he's a tremendously talented player defensively. And offensively, he's shown signs for sure. And I still think there's going to be teams that like really value him highly and try to end up signing him. I don't think it's going to be anytime soon, because if you look at the market, you have Luis Robert Jr. lingering out there. You have the potential of Byron Buxton as well. But that being said, I highly doubt he's going to be moved. But there's all these center field options where it's just such a glut that it's stuck at the moment. So I don't expect him or any of these guys to come off the board soon. But that being said, I expect him to do quite well in free agency, considering just how many teams are in the market here for a center fielder, but also just I think teams value him pretty highly here. Let's see. Well, I'm trying to understand that Jay Burden question. I have no idea what that means. But Jays and Kyle Tucker. Okay, I'll address that one because that one is very easy to understand. The Jays make a whole lot of sense for Tucker. He is a player that I think they could absolutely use. I think it's hilarious how players are recruiting him through his Instagram comments and whatever. and making it like a very public thing. We know one thing about Kyle Tucker is that, well, his free agency is that he visited the Jays' facility in Dunedin. Besides that, it is a total mystery as of this point. But that being said, I do know there are plenty of teams in this. I would expect the big markets to be active and lingering in this. And I still don't think we can rule out the Dodgers as a candidate here. Yeah, maybe it would be a short-term deal like Katie Wu of The Athletic had reported. But I think they're a team that makes a lot of sense. They love going after the big fish. And if they can go out and get him, I know that's going to frustrate a lot of people. But I think the Jays make a whole lot of sense. And again, some of these other big market teams as well that I firmly expect to check in here as well. Okay, we gotta move quickly here because we're almost at the end of the show. Will Jazz Chisholm be traded? No, I don't believe so. I saw a question about Tarek Skubal, whether or not he's going to be traded. I would highly doubt that. I don't expect him to be moved. I expect him to be in Detroit for the coming season. But that would very much surprise me if Skubal is traded. Let's see. Does Perry actually think there's any chance that they can get Bellinger? Again, like the number one priority here for Bellinger is being on a winner. And yeah, maybe Artie Moreno can blow him away with an offer that he can't refuse. But he wants to win, and I just can't see. I can't see Bellinger going there. I'd be really surprised. I'm not gonna rule it out entirely, but I would venture it's pretty unlikely. Does Arraez even have a market? He has 5+ teams involved. I can confidently say that. I don't know of anything imminent, but there are 5 teams in on Luis Arraez. Could the Giants trade for Peralta? They could, but they're very comfortable with their 5 that they have in the rotation. I wouldn't rule out another addition there for the starting rotation, but that being said, they can be picky there, but I don't expect them to place like a huge priority on another starting pitcher unless it's too good to be true. So with that being said, I appreciate everyone who tuned in for the show today. It was very strange not having Adam here. I like doing the pod here with Adam much more than a solo pod, but always enjoy it. I appreciate everyone who tuned in, and I will see you all here on Monday. So take care, everybody.